Hi, welcome back. I'm Quenby Gallahan. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I have been a psychotherapist here in the state of California for well over a decade. And this channel, The Grateful Therapist, is all about mental health, personal growth, and counseling tips. So if you like learning about those sorts of things, please be sure to subscribe. Today we are talking about how a therapist helps teenagers with anger management. I think this video will be appropriate for you if you are a counselor or a mentor, some type of therapist that works with teens. Maybe you are a parent who's concerned about your own teen who seems to be displaying some anger issues. You're a friend or anyone who cares about a teen in their life and you can tell that teen is really struggling with their anger. I hope you find some helpful tips in this video today. And as usual, when I make these videos for you, I try to have some therapy tools, some worksheets for you, so that along with this video and the worksheets, it'll hopefully guide you in your work with teenagers when they're dealing with anger. These worksheets will be available for you in my Etsy shop. The shop is called The Grateful Therapist, just like here on YouTube. There'll also be a link in my description. Okay, let me start with just a general overview of, as a therapist, how I'm thinking about my work with teenagers when it comes to anger. And then I'll get into some more specific interventions. In other words, what do you actually do when you have the teenager in the room with you? And we'll get into a little bit more detail. So in general, what I'm thinking of when I am referred a teen client who is having trouble managing their anger, maybe they're yelling and screaming at their mom, or they're saying really mean things to their little brother, or they're having arguments with their boyfriend or their girlfriend, and it seems like they're having a hard time controlling their reactions and their feelings. What I'm thinking about is that I really have to help the teenager to understand exactly what happens for them when they get angry. I want to help them understand what is happening in their body. What signs is their body giving them that anger is coming on? I want to know what's happening in their thoughts, in their mind, that is exacerbating the anger. I really want to help them understand what happens when they get angry so that they can have more control over it. The other thing that I really want to help teenagers with is to help them slow everything down. Most teenagers report that they go from 0 to 60 very quickly. The whole thing happens so fast, they feel like they don't have any control over it. So we want to help slow the anger process down so that there are some moments where they can pause and make a different choice other than yelling or screaming or saying something cruel. This ultimately helps the teenager feel better because a lot of the teens I work with, they feel kind of guilty for their anger outbursts. They feel like there's something wrong with them. They feel like they can't control it, and that's even a little bit scary for them. They think they're like just a bad person who just says mean, bad things. So I think that they need some reassurance that this is not who they are. This anger is not who they are. It's not their identity. They'll sometimes say, well, it's just how I am. And I'm like, no, it's not who you are. It's a behavior. It's the behavior we have to work on. It's your reactions that we can work on. It's totally doable. With some practice and some subtle changes, you can manage this anger, no problem. So we can encourage them and build them up a little bit in that way. So in that way, we can really help normalize some of their feelings and reactions and help them feel better about themselves. I do just want to point out that I'm focusing this video on teens, but this is the same work I would be doing with younger kids or adults. I might just change up my language a little bit or change up my worksheet a little bit, but it's the same general process. Okay, now I'm going to dive into a little bit more of what I said in some more detail. So let's talk about how to help teens understand anger in their body. I'm a therapist who likes to do a lot of kind of somatic work, connecting our body, mind, and spirit. This is a very holistic process, and I think our body gives us the first signals. So I like to help teens understand what happens in their body when they get angry. I like to do this using a body map. You could do it verbally or in whatever way feels comfortable for you. I've shared about body mapping in some of my other videos. I'm looking for my body mapping worksheet here. I've used this in some of my anxiety videos, but it's basically, we're going to map out what anger is like in their body. A lot of teens say that they want to clench their fist, their heart starts beating really fast. They might feel like they want to run. They might feel sweaty. They feel like their thoughts are going really quickly. We want to help them map that out and really understand it, because that's our body sending us clues. Clues that we're hooked, we're triggered, the anger is starting to rise. And if a teenager can catch that very quickly in the beginning, they have that little moment of choice. That is the reason we try and teach people with anger to slow things down, so that they have that few seconds where they have a choice, where they can say, oh, I'm in the anger. I can feel the anger coming on. I need a break. I need to breathe. I need to do something else. That is a pivotal moment for people that are struggling with anger. So let's help them understand it in their body so that they can feel it coming on and pause and notice that. The other thing that I really want to help teens with is understanding anger in their thoughts. What's going through their mind. Most teens will say their thinking really speeds up when they get angry. It gets really negative. They might have some intense thoughts that they wouldn't otherwise have. And that's a sign that they're going into anger. A lot of people have certain triggers, and we will talk about triggers next. But there are certain thoughts that when they have those thoughts, or they think someone is blaming them or labeling them, that can send them into anger very quickly. So it's extremely helpful to know what those thoughts are. When you have a thought like you think someone is saying that you're not good enough, or that you're stupid, or you did it wrong, or you're not worthy, understanding that that's one of your triggers is huge and will help you as you try and control your anger. Let's talk a little bit about triggers. And an anger trigger is just something that kind of brings on your anger or worsens it. Triggers can be people. There are certain people that you get more angry around. They can be certain places, like whenever you're at school or at gym class, you're just going to kind of lose it. It can be certain thoughts like we just talked about. And getting really clear about what those triggers are gives you a lot more choice and a lot of control. So I do have a worksheet in this little packet about helping you to identify anger triggers. Another thing that I think is helpful, it's not necessary, but can be really helpful, is to understand kind of how you learned about anger. Like, how do people in your family express their anger? Where have you learned about how to express feelings and how we do that in our family? That's just helpful stuff to know. It can help you be more compassionate and empathetic with yourself. You can say, I think I learned my anger response from my dad. He really blows up and I don't like when he does that, but wait a minute, here I am doing it. I might have kind of learned it, or there might be some genetic component, but it's something I have to work on. And that's kind of where it came from, so I get it. And that level of understanding can help, once again, when you go to try and change patterns, and it can help you have a lot more empathy and compassion for where you're at with things. I think another really helpful thing is helping a teenager to understand why they want to make a change. What is their why? What's motivating them to make changes? Usually if they've come to counseling or if they've come to you as a support person, there's some problems with it. It's not working for them. They don't feel good about themselves, or they're getting in trouble at home. They're getting their phone taken away, or they're losing privileges, or they're getting grounded, or it's causing problems in their relationship with their boyfriend or significant other. Their parents are always upset with them and worried. There's usually a reason, something that brings them to us. And it's important to know what that is, because that can help us when things get sticky to say, okay, I really want to change this pattern. I know anger is just a way that I'm reacting. I know I can do better than this. I know I've got a lot of tools that I can use instead of blowing up and yelling at somebody. And the reason I want to change it is because it's really hurting my relationships, or I'm getting in too much trouble and it's really inconvenient, or I don't feel good about myself. So helping them to figure out why they even want to do this work might be really helpful. One of the important steps, I think, and one of the reasons we teach them to understand what's happening in their body and in their thoughts, is to name it when they feel the anger coming on. Because if you can pause and name it, that gives you a moment where you have a choice. You can either blow up like you usually do, or you can take some deep breaths and calm down. So one of the most helpful tips is to teach them, when they recognize those feelings rising up in their body, when they notice they can't breathe right and their thoughts are spinning out of control and they want to make fists with their hands and they notice their thoughts are getting a little bit intense, that's when they can pause and say, oh, I'm getting really angry. I can feel it coming on. And that moment of awareness is huge when it comes to anger management, because you're not just going into the same unconscious pattern and repeating that. You're catching yourself in it, you're naming it, I'm going into anger, and then there's that moment where you get to decide what to do next. And this is where we can really help teens and give them some tools for what to do other than get really mad and say things and yell. So let's talk a little bit about what those tools are. I think one of the biggest ones is teaching teens that it's okay to give themselves a timeout. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to literally walk away from the situation. If you're in an argument with your mom and you feel all the anger feelings rising up in your body, you can tell you're angry. You caught it this time. You slowed down and paused just for a second. You caught it. Now what are you going to do? It's perfectly okay to give them some words, and we actually role play and practice the words. I need to give myself a timeout here. I need to give myself a little break until I'm calm. That right there is huge. And then they can come back and rejoin and talk with their mom again, maybe in 30 minutes when they're ready. I offer a lot of education that you can't really resolve anything. You cannot have constructive conversations and figure anything out when you're triggered and in that anger place. You have to be able to breathe calmly and calm down your system before you can engage in any more problem solving and any more discussion. So it's kind of useless to just stay there at the table arguing with each other back and forth. You may need to take a break. I do a lot of breathing work with my clients, and I explain to them why it's so important. It doesn't have to be complicated. I'm going to assume that you know some breathing techniques. There are so many. It can be as simple as breathing in for 3, 1, 2, 3, breathing out for 3, 1, 2, 3. And I'll actually do it with the clients, and I tell them they need to practice. We need to practice this stuff so that it's in our memory bank when it's time to use it. We can't expect that if we never practice any breathing, then suddenly we're triggered and we're going to remember how to breathe. We'll actually do it in the office, and I ask them to practice it at home. It's going to take some practice. This is not an instantaneous fix in any way. It's normal. If you try some stuff and it's not perfect, and you have to keep practicing and trying again. So breathing is another great one. I teach them a lot about exercise and how important exercise is to do. It's great if you do it kind of when you're angry, because if you've ever been really angry yourself, you know what that energy of anger feels like, and it needs to be moved. You can't just usually lay down and take a big nap. You usually need to go do some exercise, go take a walk, get out in nature, go burn off that anger for 15 minutes, and then come back and talk to whoever it was you need to resolve something with. But also doing exercise preventatively is extremely helpful. I do think it's helpful and also very brave to talk to the people in our lives and let them know that we're working on our anger stuff, that we're really working on controlling our anger more and staying calm. So we really might need their support. We might need to take a time out in the middle of a conversation. I just want to let you know that ahead of time. I might need to pause for a moment, and it's okay if you're in a heated situation with someone to say, I just need to pause for a minute. I'm just going to breathe for a second and see if I can regulate my nervous system. And if I cannot, then I need to take a break. And that's okay. I like to help my teenagers. I like to help them actually practice saying these things out loud, because they can sound so great in our heads and so easy. But then when it's time to go do it, sometimes we're like, I couldn't really figure out what to say. So a lot of my work with teenagers, I'm actually doing a little role play, and we're practicing saying, like when we do boundary work, practice them saying, no, that doesn't work for me, saying it out loud with me in session. I think that's really helpful with teens. Okay, so that's just a little bit about how I work with teens when we're working on anger management. I hope it was helpful. I have many other videos working with teenagers, how to help them like therapy more, how to work with them on anxiety, how to help them change negative thoughts. So maybe those will help you. Please, in the comments, if you want to add anything, you're welcome to do that there, because people read the comments and that's a great way for people to learn. And I hope to see you in another video. I'm going to end by just saying, please, please, please be your teenager's encourager. Build them up, provide support and encouragement. Let them know there's nothing wrong with them. They're doing great. We're just going to work on this anger stuff. People struggle with this. It's no big deal. We'll figure it out together. There's a good reason why. And they can do it. And it will take practice. They've had this pattern going for a while, and it takes a little while to rewire those patterns, but we can totally do it. And be supportive and loving and empathetic so that we can really help teens. It's a great time for them to learn to manage this stuff. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Be sure to subscribe. Bye.